Yikes, this is shocking. A new low for Prince Harry as he defunds Symbolism.
An unimaginable bastard. What does that tell you about this human being? Do you see what I mean? It's like, this is such a bigger story about what Harry has become, about how vengeful he has become. And I didn't know if it was actually more possible for him to shame the memory of his mother, Princess Diana.
Symbolism was supposed to be one of the safest parts of Prince Harry's public life. It was the charity tied to years of service, Africa, compassion, and the legacy of Princess Diana. But now that same organization has become the center of a bitter fallout, a legal fight, and a money decision that is being interpreted in the most damaging way possible.
This decision by Harry to defund Symbolism is completely outrageous because Symbolism is headquartered in one of the poorest parts of the world, Lesotho, in Africa. And the work of this amazing charity supports children and young people, particularly those affected by HIV/AIDS, poverty, and social inequality.
Before we get into today's story, I wanted to let you know that I've finally launched my Patreon. Many of you have been asking for more royal family content, so that's exactly what I'll be posting there. Exclusive investigations, bonus videos, breaking royal news, and members-only discussions that won't be available on YouTube. If you're interested, you'll find the link in the description. Now, let's get into today's story.
Shames this man. Shames this man. Proves this man does not give a damn about the people who he claims to be his life's work.
Harry has redirected money that had been going to Symbolism for years. On paper, the amount is not enormous. But in the middle of this feud, the timing makes it look anything but routine. The charity he helped create is now on the opposite side of a legal dispute. Its chair doctor, Sophie Shandauka, is publicly at odds with him. Meghan Markle has been pulled into the story, and suddenly Harry's money is going somewhere else.
The money is now going elsewhere. The Duke has chosen Elephants Without Borders, the Botswana-based conservation organisation with long-standing connections to both Harry and Meghan. So this is the new recipient of the share. I've got no problem with Elephants Without Borders, another great organisation, another great cause. But the elephant in the room is that Harry has decided to withdraw money from Symbolism and therefore to deprive this organisation of the funds it needs to do the work that it does so well.
So this is no longer just a charity story. It is a question of what Harry's move was meant to say. A clean break, a new priority, or one final message after a relationship that has completely collapsed. Harry's share of proceeds, linked to the Diana Memorial Fund, had been sent towards Symbolism for years. Since 2020, the organization received tens of thousands of pounds through that arrangement, including more than £16,000 in 2024.
If things are going so well for Harry, why can't he give money to the elephants and to Symbolism? My big problem with this, and I'm going to tell you that the amount of money involved is not a huge amount, it's a few thousand, but it's the symbolism. It is the fact that Symbolism have got to deal with the fact that Harry's turned his back on them. The Duke, who is the son of the King of the United Kingdom, is no longer interested in charity and no longer effectively approves of what it does. It's a betrayal of Symbolism. It is neglect. It is abandonment.
But in 2025, Harry's share, a little over £5,000, was instead directed to Elephants Without Borders, a Botswana-based conservation organization that has long-standing connections to Harry and Meghan. There is nothing scandalous about supporting elephant conservation. Elephants Without Borders is a legitimate cause. Botswana has been important to Harry for years, and he is completely entitled to support a different organization.
What does that tell you about this human being? Do you see what I mean? It's like, this is such a bigger story about what Harry has become, about how vengeful he has become. And I agree. Diana would have said, look, I love the elephants, but no, you spend that money on the children. Okay,
right.
this is my name, my legacy. The elephants, that's your thing. You know, put your hand in your pocket, Harry. £6,000. You've got £6,000. You might be running out of money. You've got £6,000. You pay that for the elephants. Let's keep this money going on the children.
But that is not why this story exploded. The question is why the change happened now. Why after the collapse with Symbolism? Why after the fight with Sophie? Why after Harry stepped away from the organization? Why after the legal conflict became public? Why did money that had gone to one of his signature charities for years suddenly go somewhere else at the exact moment that relationship turned toxic? And because the amount is only around £5,000, the move becomes even more interesting. That sum is not going to transform Harry's finances. It is not some huge redistribution of wealth.
And you are saying to those people, Harry, because of your personal row with Dr. Sophie Chandoka, because your wife treated her like a piece of crap, you are saying to those people they're not deserving of Princess Diana's money? I'm sorry. You might not want to hear this, but you need to hear this. Diana would be ashamed of this decision. And no amount of PR spin will convince me otherwise.
It is not a giant new philanthropic plan that automatically explains the decision. Instead, the amount makes the message look sharper. Not you anymore. That is why the word revenge is now attached to the story. Was Harry trying to punish Sophie? Was he making a point to the board? Did he simply decide he would not send money to an organization fighting him legally? Or did he honestly want to support wildlife instead? We cannot know what Harry was thinking privately. But public image is about perception, and the perception here is brutal. Now, that relationship is shattered.
What's happened is that Harry has decided to wage war on Symbolism following a bitter public row with the inspirational chairwoman of this charity, Dr. Sophie Chandoka, and their decision to sue Harry for defamation. So, Harry has redirected money linked to his late mother's memorial fund away from Symbolism, the charity he co-founded in her memory, following the spectacular breakdown of relations with the organisation.
And that is far bigger than £5,000. It is bigger than elephants. It is bigger than one payment. The real story is that another important relationship tied to Harry and Meghan has ended in open hostility. To understand why that matters, look at what Symbolism represented for Harry before the feud. Harry helped establish Symbolism in 2006. For years, it was one of the areas where even many people who disliked his later decisions still gave him credit.
Because what else could suggest the fact that he's gone public with the fact that these elephants have been named Archie and Lily? It's ego. It's all about ego. This is not about good work. It's about Harry and Meghan's ego. And Dr. Mike Chase strokes the ego, and Dr. Sophie Chandoka refused to do so.
Whatever anyone thought about Meghan, leaving royal duties, the Netflix deals, or his memoir, Symbolism was often treated as meaningful work that existed outside the celebrity circus. Now even that part of his legacy is being swallowed by Sussex drama. That should be deeply worrying for Harry, because if his strongest charitable work starts becoming defined by feuds, what part of his public identity is left untouched? And for Meghan, what does it do to her image when yet another relationship connected to the couple ends in accusations and hostility? The destination of the money makes the optics even more striking, because Harry did not choose a completely unrelated cause.
Harry's got a long history with that. Meghan and Harry, they love the elephants. The animals were actually, there were a couple of elephants in particular that were named after Archie and Lily some time ago. Archie, their eldest son, reportedly chose a blue tracking collar for the elephant carrying his name, while Lily selected purple for hers. Lovely.
There is also another strange detail about where the money went. Elephants Without Borders already has warm, personal associations with the Sussex family. 2 elephants were reportedly given the names Archie and Lily, and the little ones were said to have been involved in choosing colors for tracking collars. Again, there is nothing wrong with any of that. Supporting conservation is a positive thing. But look at the contrast Harry created. On one side is Symbolism, the organization he helped build, now involved in a bitter legal and personal dispute with him.
That kind of money is not a lot in the big scheme of things, but it would go a long way for children in Africa, right? And Harry, to me, it just looks like he is just abandoning.
On the other is a Botswana charity connected to happier memories, family symbolism, and a country Harry has described as deeply important to him. That makes the move look almost like a reset of his own story. The old relationship tied to Sophie is pushed away. The warmer Sussex family imagery stays. One organization is associated with conflict, accusations, and lawyers. The other is associated with Botswana, family memories, and conservation. Can you really be surprised that critics see more than an administrative change?
The funding involved is tiny. It's tiny. It's meaningless, actually, in this case. Like, it's meaningless for Symbolism, £5,400. But this is about vengeance. It's about Harry taking vengeance. It's about him seeking revenge on Dr. Sophie Chandoka and thinking that the way to do that, P. Diner, is to punish.
The problem for Harry is that moving the money does not erase Symbolism. It does the opposite. It forces everyone to ask again why the relationship became so poisonous. It sends people straight back to Sophie, Meghan, the leadership fight, the accusations, and the moment everything began falling apart. But this story lands on top of a bigger Sussex problem. The growing impression that important relationships around Harry and Meghan keep ending badly. That pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Friends disappear, staff leave, partnerships collapse. Former allies turn into critics, projects end badly. Relationships that were once presented as close suddenly become strained or silent.
Harry had an incredibly public row with Symbolism because the inspirational chairwoman, Sophie Chandoka, said that she was the victim of bullying and something truly outrageous, which is called misogynoir, which is a mixture of horrible misogyny and racism. Now, we've got to be clear that Harry denies those allegations, but the row was so public that the Charity Commission, who investigated what went wrong at Symbolism, attacked Prince Harry and said it was deeply wrong that he allowed the row to become so public. But that's what Harry does, because he is a master in misery and negative headlines. That is what he does.
And now, one of Harry's oldest charitable connections has turned into a legal war. How many times can that happen before another misunderstanding stops sounding convincing? This is what keeps happening with Harry and Meghan. They make a decision that appears designed to close one chapter, and somehow it opens 3 more. And now Harry appears to be trying to move on from Symbolism, but the money decision has dragged everyone straight back into the feud. They never seem to leave anything quietly. There is always one final accusation, one final interview, one final leak, one final legal threat, or one final symbolic gesture that makes it obvious the relationship is over.
And for Harry to withdraw funding is an act of cruelty. It's a nasty thing to do. It's petty. It's a few $1,000s. And how can he do it? Well, it's because he wants to get revenge. He's angry. He's a very angry guy. That's why he sued the Daily Mail twice and lost twice. And the issue is that, you know, Harry's anger, it's so public. We all have moments of private anger. Life is difficult. There are lots of problems. It's not easy. You've got your challenges as well, financial, relationship stuff. You lose your job, you get health issues. Life is full of problems, right? It's the norm. But it's all about how you react to it. And Harry's fallen out with Symbolism. The right thing to do is to be very graceful and say, look, I'm no longer connected to this charity, but I'm still going to let them have the money, which is the legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales.
With Symbolism, the symbolism could hardly be stronger. Now go back to the feud itself, because this is where the funding change starts looking much more personal. For months, the breakdown involving Harry, Meghan, and Sophie has looked less like an ordinary disagreement between professionals and more like a personal feud that kept getting uglier. Sophie did not simply disappear from public view. She spoke. She made allegations. Harry pushed back. The relationship deteriorated in front of everyone. Eventually, the charity Harry once proudly helped launch ended up accusing him of involvement in an adverse media campaign that it says harmed the organization. Harry has denied those allegations.
Because let's just take a moment. Like, forget about Dr. Sophie Chandoka. I think she's great, right? I think she's amazing. But let's just say she was the worst person in the world. Harry, you know who you were withdrawing the funding from. Why did you always talk about how brilliant Symbolism is? Because it is a charity, a practical charity, a large-scale charity, a locally grounded charity that supports vulnerable children and young people from the age of 0 to 24 in Lesotho and Botswana.
Think about how extraordinary that is. Harry went from co-founder to legal opponent. How does one of the most important charities associated with his name end up on the opposite side of a legal fight? How does something once used to demonstrate his compassion turn into another public war? And why does Meghan keep appearing in the background of the fallout? One of the most controversial parts of this entire story has been the suggestion that the tension with Sophie became increasingly personal once Meghan entered the picture.
With the Netflix deal having all but disappeared, with the Cookies documentary having been a box office flop, with Harry's speaking engagements going from $1 million per speech after Megxit to 50,000, and even those gigs are drying up. Actually, the only hope for the couple is as philanthropists. Well, that's going awfully as well. By the way, African Parks, which is another charity that Harry's on the board of, which stands accused of wild abuse of local tribes people. Now, of course, Harry's not involved in that, but he's on the board.
There was that heavily discussed public event moment where Meghan was accused of snubbing Sophie. That single interaction does not prove what caused the later breakdown, and nobody can honestly say that it does. But what happened after that is impossible to ignore. Whatever relationship existed between the two sides did not improve. It deteriorated dramatically. Now, look at the order of events. Public tension, leadership conflict, resignations, accusations, legal threats, a defamation dispute, Harry stepping away. And then, after years of money being directed towards Symbolism, the destination changes.
So yes, it's just a few $1,000s, but the messaging is horrible. It also tells us something else, which is that this image of Harry being the lovely guy, drinks a beer, very caring, very down-to-earth, ex-military, all of that baloney, well, I'm not so sure. If I look at this decision to deprive Symbolism of their cash, I'm thinking Harry is not a nice person.
Of course, people are asking whether that was personal. Sophie did not fade away quietly. She challenged the version of events being presented around the Sussexes and the charity. She made allegations about treatment, leadership, and the atmosphere surrounding the organization. Harry has rejected claims made against him. But once those accusations entered the public arena, the damage was done. There was no easy route back to a polite working relationship. That is why Meghan matters here, even if she did not make the funding decision herself.
So the name Sentebale, in this African language, it literally means forget-me-not. And yet, Harry is quite literally forgetting this charity.
There is no evidence that Meghan personally told Harry to redirect this money, and it would be wrong to claim otherwise. But the wider feud did not happen in isolation. Her public interaction with Sophie became part of the story. Her name appeared in the broader accusations and tensions. And critics have repeatedly argued that Harry's relationship with Sophie became far more hostile as the conflict involving Meghan intensified. So the uncomfortable question is unavoidable. Is Harry once again fighting a battle that became deeply personal because Meghan was involved?
Stop suing people, Harry, and stop losing. But you can detest an organization, but what you're not going to do is allow these people in one of the poorest parts of the world to be deprived of that investment. It is just a small amount of money, but it's the symbolism, right? It's the Duke abandoning this charity and therefore abandoning the people. It's also, by the way, really stupid public relations-wise of Harry, because it makes him look nasty. It makes him look like a horrible person. It makes him look petty and vicious and cruel. And it makes him look like someone that seeks revenge and wants to settle scores.
Look at the position he created for himself. If he had continued sending money to Symbolism while the organization was involved in a legal dispute with him, people would have called that strange. But when he stopped sending it, the decision immediately looked like retaliation. Either way, the relationship is now so damaged that even an ordinary donation choice becomes part of the scandal. That is not stability. That is total collapse. And this is not merely an ugly disagreement anymore. There is still a legal cloud hanging over the collapse, and the legal cloud has not disappeared.
This is what happens with Harry and Meghan, and in particular, Harry. these public rows because he's so angry and he seeks revenge. So it's okay to fall out with Symbolism. I get it. You're not going to love an organisation that is suing you. And of course, it's a big worry because if Harry loses that defamation case, he could be on the hook for many more millions of dollars.
Symbolism has accused Harry of involvement in an adverse media campaign that it says caused reputational damage and disrupted its work. Harry rejects those allegations and has strongly disputed the claims against him. The fight is still active, which means this story could become much uglier. What happens if internal messages or private communications become relevant? What happens if more details about the breakdown are revealed? What happens if people around the organization start describing what they witnessed behind closed doors? This is not a finished story. It is an open wound, and by redirecting the money, Harry has just put fresh attention on it.
Harry and Meghan actually made it harder for Symbolism to raise funds and to get sponsors because they were so toxic. And she said that she didn't want the Sussex brand to affect the work of Symbolism, which was becoming very negative. Now, there's an argument to be made that, you look at Invictus, of course, it's a great cause, isn't it? But the Harry and Meghan soap opera has not helped that charity, which is why Invictus, which I support massively, is losing sponsors left, right, and centre.
From his perspective, the decision may feel completely logical. He may believe he has no reason to continue sending money toward an organization that is now in a legal dispute with him. He had a choice about where his share went, and he chose another cause. But public life is not only about what someone has the right to do. It is also about what the decision communicates. And this communicates one thing very clearly. The relationship is finished. Completely finished. No quiet reconciliation. No polite distance.
And by the way, it's not even his money. This is a legacy of Diana's charitable work. And he shouldn't be playing politics with it. And we know what's happened, which is that because he's had a row with Symbolism, because he's lost control of the charity that he co-founded, because Dr. Sophie Chandauka was victorious in that public relations battle and now controls the charity, he's bitter and he wants to seek revenge because Harry is a very vengeful person, let's not forget.
No soft statement about moving forward. The funding changed. The relationship broke. The legal fight remains. And Meghan is still part of the shadow hanging over the entire dispute. For Harry, that legal fight creates an even bigger problem, because charity work was supposed to be the part of his image that survived everything else. And there is another reason this is dangerous for Harry. His public image has depended heavily on compassion and service.
Harry has freaked out and has realized, okay, we have to try and justify why and how we're doing this. And we have to justify it to try and make it look as if it's not a personal vendetta and that I'm not withdrawing mum's money for personal reasons, even though that's exactly what he's doing.
He has spent years talking about mental health, veterans, vulnerable communities, charity work, and helping others. That was supposed to be the part of his reputation that survived the royal family feud, the interviews, the lawsuits, and the endless celebrity drama. But now, even his humanitarian world is becoming contaminated by the same chaos. What happens when the charity work begins producing the same kind of headlines as the family feud? What happens when the organization Harry helped create is no longer celebrating him, but fighting him?
And don't forget, all of Harry and Meghan's charity stuff is such a disaster. So defunding Symbolism whilst being sued by them, Archwell Philanthropies, which then became the Archwell Foundation, or the other way around, it changes its name every 10 minutes, has effectively been shuttered. And then Invictus losing sponsors, maybe next year is the last. This is a disaster. Not only are Harry and Meghan not making money.
What happens when the story changes from Harry supports vulnerable young people to Harry redirects money after a bitter fallout? That is a huge reputational shift. And the move looks even more avoidable when you consider the options Harry had. He could have stepped away from the internal dispute while allowing an existing funding arrangement to continue. He could have made a separate donation to wildlife conservation. He could have supported both organizations. We are not talking about an amount so huge that only one cause could possibly receive support. That is exactly why the timing keeps raising eyebrows.
But whose bright idea was it for Harry to defund Symbolism? And what would Diana make of that up there in heaven? To see Harry defund the charity that Harry started in her honour. All of that good work, all of that goodwill, all the positive PR has gone completely the other way, which of course it always does.
If the amount is relatively small, why change it at the most explosive possible moment? If it had nothing to do with the feud, why does the decision line up so neatly with the collapse of the relationship? And if Harry knew everyone would interpret it as revenge, why give them the perfect revenge headline? The most damaging issue is no longer simply that they have critics. They have had critics for years. The bigger problem is the growing impression that getting close to Harry and Meghan eventually leads to conflict. The moment the personalities become the entire story, the mission disappears behind the drama. And that is exactly what has happened here. Instead of talking about the people Symbolism exists to help, the conversation is about Harry, Meghan, Sophie, revenge, money, lawyers, accusations. The entire charitable purpose has been pushed behind a celebrity feud.
That is so bad for his brand as this lovely, caring, sharing, regular guy. Oh yeah, you know, I'm Prince Harry, I like a beer, and I was in the military, and I'm one of the good guys.
That may be the saddest part of this mess, which brings everything back to the question Harry and Meghan cannot seem to escape. Why do so many once important relationships around them end up looking like battles? That is why the real question is not whether a few £1,000s went to one charity or another. The real question is why so many relationships surrounding Harry and Meghan seem to arrive at the same destination. Why does every disagreement become a public war? Why do former allies so often end up on opposite sides? Why do professional relationships become accusations, legal threats, and humiliation? And why, at the exact moment the Sussexes need to look stable, do they keep producing stories that make them look more isolated?
And therefore, that's when we get to our conversation where I'm worried about Harry's mental state. I'm worried about his judgment.
Harry once had the royal family behind him, huge public goodwill, military respect, global attention, and charity work that gave him a serious identity beyond palace life. He and Meghan left Britain promising independence, freedom, and a fresh future built on their own terms. But look at where this story has ended. A charity Harry helped found is now fighting him. Its chair is publicly at odds with him. Meghan's name is tangled in the fallout. Money once directed to that charity has been sent elsewhere. And instead of the donation being celebrated as support for wildlife, the story everyone is discussing is revenge. How do you manage to turn a charitable donation into a revenge scandal? That is an extraordinary level of chaos. And maybe that tells us more than anything else. Harry and Meghan no longer need a palace balcony, a red carpet, or a glamorous event to create controversy.
You know, that's what Harry does, because he is selfish.
The drama now follows them into the very spaces that were supposed to prove they were serious, compassionate, and independent public figures. Charity work should have been safe territory. Now even that is cracking beneath them. So what happens next? Does Harry stop talking about Symbolism and try to move on? Does the legal battle pull more private information into public view? Does Sophie reveal more about what happened inside the organization? Does Meghan get dragged even deeper into a dispute Harry may have hoped was finally behind him? Because one thing is already obvious. Changing the destination of the money did not make this scandal disappear. It put a spotlight back on it. It made people revisit Meghan's tension with Sophie. It made them revisit Harry's departure. It made them revisit the accusations, the legal battle, and the destruction of a relationship that once looked like one of the most secure parts of Harry's public life.
So for years, Harry asked for his share of income generated by the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund to be donated to Symbolism, and it's a fantastic charity. Well done, Harry, for supporting it.
And now one brutal question is hanging over everything. Was this simply a new charitable direction? Or was it one last message of revenge? Because if it was revenge, Harry may have handed his critics exactly what they wanted without saying a word. And if it was not revenge, then he has once again managed to make a completely ordinary decision look like a declaration of war. Either way, Meghan and Harry are back in the middle of another mess they desperately did not need. And this one may only be getting started. If you enjoyed this video and want even more royal family content, don't forget to check out my Patreon. I'm uploading exclusive investigations, bonus content, and members-only videos that won't be released on YouTube. I'll be adding new content regularly. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to everything, the link is in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.